As some of you know, my exciting new thriller novel, A Woman Underground, was published this week, and I've been trying to figure out how to convince you to buy a novel I know you'll love, so I finally decided to consult with my friends in the Kamala Harris-Tim Walz presidential campaign, and they've given me some tips on how to sell you this great and innovative mystery story. Let me start by asking you this. Are you man enough to read A Woman Underground? Because I'm a man. I can bench press 500 pounds. Not all at once, obviously, but a little at a time, over a couple of days or weeks maybe. I mean, it's 500 pounds, so let's see, at a pound a day, it'd take me a little under a year and a half. But the point is, I'm man enough to support A Woman Underground, or A Woman Above Ground, or anywhere a woman chooses to be. I'm just sick of these so-called men who think that women have to be on the part of the ground they want them to be on. I'm man enough to love it when a woman takes charge, especially if she's wearing one of those skin-tight latex bodysuits, maybe a pair of really high heels so she can step on my chest while I cry out in a mind-bending mixture of agony and ecstasy. Because I'm a man, I eat carburetors for lunch, because that's the sort of thing real men say, standing around naked in the locker room, talking about eating carburetors, maybe with a fine Chablis and some of those little parsley sprigs. I love those. So let me just cross my legs awkwardly at the knee and ask you again, are you man enough to read A Woman Underground? Now, some of you guys might be thinking, hey, all this time you've told us how masculinity is toxic and how white men screw up the world by building and inventing stuff, which ruins life for everyone else by making it too great. So look, to prove there are no hard feelings, I'm going to drink a beer, just like a white man would. In fact, I'll even put on one of those orange vest thingies and go hunting. Maybe for a giant rabbit who will spin my rifle around till I blow my face off as if I were Elmer Fudd, except that Elmer Fudd knows how to load a rifle, and I'm not totally sure. And hey, what about the brothers? I suspect some of the brothers won't buy A Woman Underground because it has the word woman in the title. You naughty brothers. But I'll tell you what, to convince you to get down with the struggle, I'm going to give every black man who buys my book $1 million free. And how about some marijuana? The Harris-Walz campaign told me the brothers just love them some marijuana, so I'll give you so much marijuana you can start a business selling marijuana, standing out on the street corner until the cops haul you away. That'll be a change of pace. So, yes, sir, there's plenty of reefer for any brother who'll buy my amazing new thriller novel, A Woman Underground. And speaking of women, some of those other novelists want to keep you women home in the kitchen, having babies who grow up to have more babies and so on until they're just whole generations of babies who rise up and call you blessed. Who wants that? I'm the kind of novelist who understands that what you women really want is to abort those babies so you can sleep with men who don't give a damn about you without being punished with all of these damn babies all the time. So if you'll buy my great new novel, A Woman Underground, I'll come to your house myself and personally all your children so you can sleep with anyone you damn well want. And that's my sales pitch for my gripping new thriller novel, A Woman Underground, which is exactly like the pitch for a Kamala Harris presidency, except that you'll actually love A Woman Underground, and when it's finished, they'll still be in America. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. We are back, laughing our way through the fall of the Republic. I may not have mentioned this, but my new novel, A Woman Underground, is now available. It is published. You can buy it on Amazon or at store.dailywire.com. We were at the Landmark Bookstore, me and my son Spencer Klavan, no relation, both of us promoting our novels, mine, A Woman Underground, him promoting his book, which is not a novel, Light of the Mind, Light of the World. It was packed. It was an amazing event. We were there, it must have been 3.5 hours. The lines were so long coming in to get book signed and just to say hello. It was really lovely to meet everybody. And I will be doing it again on my own on Monday at the Mysterious Bookshop in downtown Manhattan, Warren Street at 6 p.m. I hope you will come by there. Last year we did it there and had a wonderful time. And please go out and buy the book. You're going to love it. I mean, people who are getting it are just saying they can't stop reading it. And so it's not like I'm a commentator who sometimes writes novels. I'm a novelist who sometimes does commentary. So I know what I'm doing. You will love this book, A Woman Underground. Have I mentioned it's been published? It has. And if you leave a comment and the comment is sufficiently despicable and racist and sexist and all the rest, we will read it on the show because that's the kind of content we love here. This today's comment is from Craig Simmons 5949. Emperor Klavan, with inflation cleaning out my bank account, I've been hiding purchases from my wife. You can imagine the nightmare I was in when my wife discovered a charge for A Woman Underground. I may not have mentioned this, but A Woman Underground is now available. You should be buying it while we speak. I don't know what else you could be doing. And I'll tell you one other thing. On October 28th, Am I Racist? The #1 documentary of the decade will be streaming exclusively on DailyWire. Plus, get ready now. Go to dailywire.com, subscribe, and use code DEI for 35% off new annual memberships right now. So let's get right to today's episode, Kamala Baiered.
Tradition holds that I'm supposed to tell a few self-deprecating jokes this evening. So here it goes. Nope, I've got nothing.
That's Trump being very funny and charming at the Al Smith dinner. And Kamala was as funny and charming as she's ever been by just not showing up. This brings me to a clapback I got this week. If you want to send clapbacks, send them to Klavan Klapbacks at dailywire.com, Klavan with a K, Klapbacks with a K, Klavan Klapbacks at dailywire.com. You can comment on the show. You can ask about your personal life, anything you want about politics, and we will try and answer them. But I got this one today from a guy named Jason. I thought the question in some ways was so profound, I'm going to use it as the theme of today's show. Jason says, "Hi, this is about the tagline of your show, laughing your way through the collapse of Western civilization. My question is, how does one actually do that? The recent news about escalations between the collective West and Russia over the war in Ukraine has got me concerned. In addition, it seems likely to me that a Harris administration would continue our sleepwalk toward World War III with the disastrous situation in the Middle East and the looming threat of Taiwan and China. In light of this, how do you stay sane, jovial, and laugh while the world seems to be getting crazier and crazier?" And I actually get asked this question quite a lot in one form or another. And so by the end of the show, I'm going to answer that question. But first, I just want to step back for a minute and take a look at where our country is and maybe Western culture is, and consider the things that the best and brightest people in this country, the elites, the people who make big six-figure salaries, who dress well, who go to the best events, let's just think for a minute about things that they are seriously discussing. The idea that gender is fluid, that men can become women and women can become men, and there's nothing wrong with a man who's a woman competing with men or going into a woman's locker room. Now, why are they saying that? They're saying this because Judith Butler, an angry lesbian woman who purposely writes incredibly obscurely, says this in a book. There's no science behind it. The scientists all say it's untrue. And yet, if you disagree, you're a terrible, terrible person. That's funny. There's something funny about that. There's something funny about people in the suits that they wear with the positions that they have telling you that you're an idiot if you don't think that that's true when it's obviously not true. Anti-racism, another one. We can solve racism against one group by being racist another group until they're balanced, and if they don't get balanced, then we'll just go back to the racism of the other group. It's from Ibram Kendi, an obvious nitwit, a guy who only has to open his mouth for you to understand that this guy hasn't got a brain in his head. And now it looks like he's also kind of a con man. He took all this money and donations and did nothing with it. The scandal has vanished, completely memory hold. And the reason it's vanished is because all those elite people who were saying, oh, what a good idea, more racism to stop racism, wonderful, wonderful idea. All of them are the scandal. They are what makes the scandal a scandal, and they don't want to report the scandal because it's them. It's a scandal that they are in. And it's funny. It is funny that anybody ever thought like, wow, this dimwit who says we should be more racist to stop racism, this is great. Well, let's give him some awards and grants and money. All kinds of things like this. Morality is relative. It's an outgrowth of random evolutionary selection. So if you live in one country where people are treated fairly, in another country where they gas everybody of a certain religion, it's fine. It's whatever turns you on, whatever is moral in your country is fine. I always wonder when they say that, if you're in a plane flying over that country, does it suddenly become okay to oppress women or kill Jews or whatever they're doing in that country? It's like, how high up does the relative morality go? All of this stuff, of course, it's sad, it's dangerous, it causes human misery, and the human misery is what makes it unfunny. But when you stand back from a minute and just look at it as an idea, if I made a movie about it, a movie in which educated people who are the elites who are sitting around in their mansions or their townhouses and, drinking the best scotch and smoking wonderful cigarillos. We're all talking about, yes, did you know that a man can become a woman in morality? You would think this is a funny movie, right? So let's take a look at how some of this plays out in our current political situation. I am really liking these balance of nature fruits and veggies. You cannot get enough fruits and vegetables you can't just eat that many of them, but they have a really wonderful way to get the dietary supplement that will ensure you get a wide variety of fruits and vegetables on a daily basis. I mean, you're supposed to get a lot of fruits and vegetables, but if you tried to eat 31 different fruits and vegetables every day, you would be miserable and you'd look silly and it would get juice all over your face. But with Balance of Nature, they provide an on-the-go solution by taking 31 different fruits and vegetables, freeze-drying them, turning them into a powder, and then putting them into a capsule. You can't get any more convenient than that. Go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Klavan for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Klavan. It just makes you feel better to get all that nutrition. Oh, but you do have to know how to spell Klavan. Ha, 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 ha. That's the catch. You knew there was a catch. It's Klavan. Chapter 1, Ha Ha Ha, Harris. Now, Kamala Harris was interviewed by Bret Baier on Fox News, and that alone is a funny sentence because some of you may not remember how demonized Fox News was when it first started. It was the end of the world that there should be one station that actually catered to conservatives. Somebody once said, Rupert Murdoch discovered a niche audience, which happened to be half of the country. And the idea that anyone should, just like Elon Musk now with X, the idea, oh my God, that anyone should disagree with this blob of leftist nonsense that has got ideas like anti-racism and men can become women and all these stupid ideas. It's because the ideas are stupid that anybody who says the emperor isn't wearing any clothes becomes the devil. So this is this demonized guy. Even the right sometimes demonizes Bret Baier. I watch Bret Baier several nights a week. The guy is definitely not only the best newsman on TV, he's the last newsman on TV. He's the last guy who plays it fair. He treats everybody exactly the same. People say it's Trump derangement syndrome because he'll interview him the same way he interviews Kamala Harris. So it's just funny that she now has to go there because, like I told you last week, she tried alternative media going up against the master of alternative media, made a total fool of herself. Now, a lot of people said that this interview was a disaster for her. I don't think it was because her side can just say, well, she went up against the demon, Fox News, and she was, spunky and all this. And because she tried to filibuster, Baier was forced into the position where he had to keep cutting her off. I know what that's like. I've been in that position, and it made him look rude if you're in here on her side. However, the question is, in context, it was a disaster. In context, the fact that every word she said was untrue and her record was so bad and he brought her record up made the thing bad. And the reason it's out of context, and the reason I think that that's more important, like normally the fact that people lie and they, obfuscate and they dodge questions doesn't make a politician look bad because they all do it. But she's doing it at a hyper level. And the thing is, people know it, but she doesn't know they know it. The reason she doesn't know they know it is she thinks she's still wrapped in that cocoon of media lies, but it's been taken away from her by the internet, and they just haven't caught up with this. So he starts out, he's talking about illegal immigration, and she won't tell him how many people have gotten in. It's millions and millions of people. He says 6 million, but I think it's way more than that. If you look at a chart, Obama was not so bad, Trump was not so bad, and then it just skyrockets under Biden and Harris. And the reason is the minute they came in, they got rid of all of Trump's safeguards because they hated Trump. And so the floodgates were open and all these guys came in. She keeps trying to blame Donald Trump, which is just laughable because they had this bill that was scuttled in Congress, and this codified catch and release. It let in close to 2 million illegals before it even went into effect. It funded sanctuary cities. It funded NGOs who support illegals, gave lawyers. It was just a crap bill that they said was a big deal. Then Baier moved on to the subject of crime. And this is a long clip, but it's worth listening to this little dance they did on the fact that many of these people who've come in, hundreds of them, are now suspected terrorists, and several of them have people in America. And this is the exchange they had.
When you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the... Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please? But you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate.
They didn't bring up the bill because it was basically letting all of these illegals become citizens, giving them a pathway to citizenship, they call it. We've done that before. They did it under Reagan. It was a disaster for people who think that immigration should be controlled. Now, the thing about this is, though, it happens, they're talking across each other, and you can read it any way you want. If you're for Harris, you can read it as Baer being unkind, or if you're against her, you can read it as a disaster. But I think the people who are thinking people, who are paying attention, are getting their information from so many sources, and it all takes place in the context of what has been happening, what Democrats have supported. For instance, just talking about comedy for a minute, talking about things that are funny. They tear down statues to George Washington and build statues to George Floyd, a drug addict who scarfed his drugs because he was caught by the police and probably died from a drug overdose. And then they thought, oh my gosh, he's changed the world. And they're still insanely hysterical about this anomalous event that meant nothing. Matt Walsh in his film goes out and petitions people to change the Washington Monument, change it to the George Floyd Monument. People sign the petition. I'm sorry, but that's funny. It is funny. It's insane, but it's funny. I mean, it's terrible that they're inviting blacks to be criminals. They're basically saying this guy represents blacks because he's a drug addict and a criminal, and police mistreated him, which of course is just a completely false narrative. And that's sad. It's sad that black people are going to suffer and be branded as this guy, this kind of person, instead of the kind of people who achieve things and move up in the world. That's sad because human suffering is always sad. But the idea is kind of funny. I mean, over at CBS, remember we talked about that thing, Tony DeCouple caught Ta-Nehisi Coates being an absolute ignorant, anti-Semitic radical when it came to what's going on in Palestine, and they scolded. CBS had this thing with the Stalinist name, like the Race and Culture Department, where they scolded DeCouple. Well, now, apparently, insiders are saying DeCouple has been making an apology tour of CBS and sort of, saying, boo-hoo, I was mean to Ta-Nehisi Coates. And I'm sorry, that's treating, the left does this to black people. It's treating him like child. They did this to Obama, too. You asked him a hard question. He's just a little person, a little black person. He can't do it. That's essentially what they're doing to Ta-Nehisi Coates, and it just makes him look ridiculous. I'm sorry. And the fact that DeCouple is going along with it, that's sad. I'm sorry he sold his soul and got cowed by these people. But, come on. This is the country that we're living in, where a reporter asks a tough question of a guy who's essentially backing rapist murdering terrorists, and somebody asks him a tough question, and they're busy giving him genius grants and throwing money at him. Again, if this guy's such a radical, how come the establishment is pouring money on his head? Has he ever? I wonder if he even asks himself that. Does he wake up to Ta-Nehisi Coates, wake up at night and think like, oh my, maybe I'm not a radical. Maybe I'm actually doing something good for the white man by making blacks look like a bunch of radicals and a bunch of criminals. But, that probably never occurs to them because the money is so good. So Kamala Harris doesn't apologize for the fact that her policies got young people slaughtered, mean hundreds of people who may be terrorists have now escaped into this country, and 3 years down the road, somebody may blow something up, and if Trump is president, it'll be Donald Trump's fault. I'm sorry, except for the human suffering, because human suffering is not funny, but except for the human suffering, we're living in a comedy. We are. I mean, we're living in a comedy of stupidity, of mass stupidity. And, you know, the funny thing is that Kamala Harris thinks that, for instance, in terms of the crime that has come in from Democrat things like defund the police and by, the immigration thing, she thinks she's protected by the media. You remember when David Muir fact-checked Donald Trump during the debate? Here's just a small cut. We've played this once before, but it's worth hearing again. Cut 10 from the debate.
Crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
Excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities.
So this is why Kamala Harris thinks she's protected, because listen to what the media did with that information. Cut 11.
The president repeats the claim that crime is rising. The facts say it is not.
FBI statistics released today show that crime is dropping. Mr. Trump remains fixated on crime, even imaginary crimes.
We have done the work. We have seen violent crimes go down because of the work that this president and this vice president has done.
Joe Biden inherited a rising high crime country. When Joe Biden passes the baton to Kamala Harris, it's a declining lower crime country.
Crime is going down.
Which the FBI just updated the numbers to.
The violent crime rate is at a 50-year low. We're also securing our border.
We see violent crime coming down in this country because of Kamala Harris's leadership.
A huge drop in crime this year. And so the record on crime overall between these two guys, again, isn't.
Make people think that crime is up when crime is down under Joe Biden.
See, there was a time in this country that when I was alive, there was a time when that would be the information that you got. But over on Fox News, on that little, cable part of Fox News that they do, the little, online thing that Fox News Digital, it's called. I have a friend named Jeff Anderson. He runs a small think tank called the American Main Street Initiative. And Jeff is just an expert statistician. And he went on Fox, and this is what while they're saying this, while that's happening, this is what Jeff Anderson of the American Main Street Initiative was saying. Cut 12.
There's been a huge increase in urban crime from 2019, right before the summer of George Floyd and the defund the police movement, to 2023, which are the most recent numbers, which were just released a couple of weeks ago. In fact, the increase in urban crime, violent crime, is 40% over that period of time. And if you take out simple assaults, which are the sort of least serious form of violent crime, then it's 54% is the increase. So it's a huge crime spike in our cities.
So this week, quietly, without any press releases, without any announcements, the FBI very quietly adjusted their crime figures for 2022 to show that offenses actually ticked up, right? A little stealth edit, except that real clear investigations caught it, because that's where the information is coming from now. It's coming from online sources, independent sources, just the sort of sources that what they're called misinformation, which translates to the truth that they don't want you to hear. So in fact, Donald Trump was right, Jeff Anderson was right, we were right, they were wrong. All of those people were wrong. ABC, NBC, CBS, all wrong. New York Times, all wrong. We were right. And they think that means the people don't know. But I don't think they're right about this, or at least they're not as right as they used to be and not as right as they think they are. And they're reduced. What are they reduced to saying? Martha Raddatz. This is amazing. Martha Raddatz on ABC has Vance on and scolds Vance, J.D. Vance, because Donald Trump talked about Aurora, Colorado, where this horrendous South American crime ring has come in and taken over buildings. And she said, well, it's not happening all over. This is what she says. Listen to this.
The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs.
Now, that's just funny in and of itself, because one would like to ask Martha Raddatz how many apartment buildings can be taken over by Venezuelan gangs before she gets upset about it. But it's doubly funny because it's reporters. What is a reporter's job? A reporter's job is to fact check the government by talking to the people. What is she doing? She's fact checking the people by talking to the government. Well, the mayor says everything's fine. The mayor says, remember, they did the exact same thing to Donald Trump. They did the exact same thing to Donald Trump when he talked about eating cats, and they fact checked him again. And they said, well, the city manager says that, everything's fine. There's no cats being eaten. He says, I saw people on TV saying their cats were eaten, and everybody laughed at Donald Trump. But obviously, those people know something. I mean, you're a reporter. You're supposed to go out and get the people on the scene and then go to the mayor and say, or the city manager and say, hey, wait a minute. You told us this, Mr. Government, Mr. Guy in power, and the people are saying that you're wrong. So we have a process. I'm sorry, it is. It's funny. It's like you call the government to fact check the people, and then you say we're speaking truth to power, or maybe the other way around, one or the other. I know we were supposed to do one of those things, but I can't remember. And again, it's sad because human suffering saps the humor out of it. But when you step back and look at it, it's funny because we see them doing it now. They used to do it in secret. They used to get away with it. Not anymore. You've got to get enough sleep. You have to. I don't have to. I never get enough sleep. I'm always lying awake. But every now and again, I think, what would be an interesting thing? What would it be like to be asleep? And that's when I turn to Beam Dream. I love it. It's not just your run-of-the-mill sleep aid. It's a concoction carefully crafted to help you slide. Like you're going into second base. You slide into sleep. And when you wake up, you don't feel groggy as you do when you sometimes use other sleep remedies. Beam Dream contains a powerful and all-natural blend of racy, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. Before I took it, I actually researched all those ingredients. They all will help you get to sleep. And now, today, my listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder, the best-selling hot cocoa for sleep with no added sugar. Now available in delicious flavors like cinnamon cocoa, chocolate, peanut butter, mint chip. Better sleep has never tasted better. Just mix Beam Dream into hot water or milk and enjoy before bedtime. If you find yourself battling the bedtime blues, give it a shot. You will be glad you did. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, take advantage of 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Klavan and use code Klavan at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/KLAVAN. No E's in Klavan. I just make it look this easy. And if you use the code Klavan, you will get 40% off your order. Chapter 2, Obama. Now, one of the things that's happening that Kamala Harris isn't seeing, because the press is so corrupt and because the press is the press, the one story the press isn't covering is that they're so corrupt. And so they don't even know how corrupt they are. And they don't even know that people have lost trust in it. But there is a Gallup poll that says two things that are really interesting, that Americans' trust in the mass media has hit a new low and their faith in the Supreme Court has inched upward since Dobbs, since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Now, that's the opposite of the effect that would happen if people trusted the media, because the media has been hammering the Supreme Court. So it's because we're seeing things, we are seeing things that they don't think we're seeing. They don't understand how much power they've lost. And that in and of itself is funny, but it's also funny because it means that when Kamala Harris goes on Bret Baier, she's bare, she's naked. We see what's going on. Here's another wonderful exchange. She's been asked again and again, what would she do different than Joe Biden? And now Baier gives her a third bite at the apple. It's cut 5.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, That track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? She's talking about Donald Trump. It's the big Hitler monster is coming to get you. The big Hitler monster is coming. If people believed in the media, who has sacrificed what little credibility they had left to get at Donald Trump, and remember all the lies, I don't have to go through them, the Russian collusion and the Hunter Biden's laptop is a Russian thing and all of this stuff. If the media still had the power that they had, Donald Trump would have been chased out of the country by the public. You know, it would have been like, oh my God, this is Adolf Hitler. What are we going to do? So she's selling this as hard as she can. Whenever she gets caught, she pulls the Trump card. And this is what she says about Donald Trump. This is cut 16.
He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
So this is the new one. You remember the old one? Was there good people on both sides? Total hoax. All the things that Donald Trump says. What happened, this enemy within clip, was he was asked by Maria Bartiromo, I believe. How is it? Bartiromo, yeah. Okay, Maria Bartiromo. He was asked whether he thought that the elections would be violent, whether he thought there would be violence after the election results came in. And she was talking about foreigners causing, violence, or possibly immigrants causing violence. And he said, no, I don't think. He said, Trump people are not going to be violent. And here is the exchange they then had. And remember, they're talking about violence here, riots and killings and things like that. Here's the rest of the exchange.
Joe Biden said he doesn't think it's going to be a peaceful election day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
So he's not exactly talking about unleashing the military on American people. He's saying if there's violence over the election, and of course you should use the National Guard in that case, because you can't have people tearing down, burning buildings just because they didn't get their way in an election, as they've tried to tell us again and again about January 6th. It's not okay when they do it. It's not okay when anybody does it. The other thing about this, of course, is we all know, that Steve Bannon is in prison over nothing. Navarro is in prison. They're investigating Elon Musk. I'll talk about that in Member Block a little bit, what's happening with Elon Musk. But they've tried to put Donald Trump in prison over nothing. Anytime anybody brings this up to me, anytime a left-winger brings up to me that Donald Trump was convicted of a felony, I always ask them the same thing. What felony was he convicted of? Because there was none. The judge said, just if you think it was a felony, it's a felony. It's a misdemeanor. The crime has run out of time. We've run out of time to prosecute it. But if you think there may have been a felony connected, go ahead. You don't have to know what it is. This is, you wonder, why are left-wing women flocking to Kamala Harris? Why are left-wing women flocking to Kamala Harris? Which is it's just hilarious that this is happening. But they are going, first of all, not only is it true that did they find out, they did an experiment that if you inject a man with testosterone, he becomes a Republican. And as I said, if you inject a woman with a man who has testosterone, she becomes a Republican. But they've also found out, I think this was a Pew poll, found out that over 50% of liberal women have at some time or other suffered from mental illness. Over 50% of young liberal women, that's what it was. So they're getting that, but they're not getting the men. So now they panic. And you want to talk about comedy. I was making fun of this in my opening about A Woman Underground. I may not have mentioned A Woman Underground is now available, and you should, while I'm talking to you, you should be ordering it on Amazon to make it go up the list, because we don't even have a USA Today. Every one of these has been on the USA Today list, and they'll never get on the Times list, but the USA Today list doesn't exist anymore, so if you can pump it up on Amazon, that will do it. I probably haven't mentioned the book before, so I just wanted to make sure I got that in. But they put out this ad to get men, because men are just even black men are abandoning Kamala Harris because they have the capacity to reason looking at this stuff. And this is part of the ad they put out.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
And I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500, then braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast.
I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
And I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
They want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president?
Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement.
Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions.
Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women.
Or one of those pants books that the sisters like.
First of all, if you're not watching this, if you haven't watched it, you really should go on and watch it. If you're just listening to this, these guys look like they were hanging out in a gay bar in West Hollywood, and somebody came in and said, anyone want to be in a Kamala Harris commercial? And they were like, ooh, that sounds like fun. And they all came rushing out. I'm sorry, everyone except the black guy who looks like he's actually maybe a real person. But it says, the way one guy crosses his legs, I thought, you got to be kidding me. Have they never, remember that woman at the DNC who said there's no such thing as a cute Democrat? She was a Democrat, and she said, I can't find a cute Democrat. All the real men are Republicans, and they're evil. Obviously, they couldn't get an evil, real man Republican to do this. And it is true, that women still are flocking to Kamala Harris. Here's the Pew survey I was looking for. It's 56% of liberal white women aged 18 to 29 have been diagnosed with a mental health condition. And Columbia University researchers found rates of depression have been rising among students of all political persuasions, but especially among liberal girls from low-income families. And, they keep saying it's because they care so much. They care so much. It's like liberals care so much about injustice. That's why they're unhappy. But one of the things that's happening throughout the West and throughout, wealthy countries is that babies are disappearing. Women aren't having babies. Women are not having babies. And they've tried giving them money. The Wall Street Journal had an article, worldwide efforts to reverse the baby shortage are falling flat. So it's these cat ladies, these, childless cat ladies who are flocking to Kamala Harris in their anxiety and their depression and their mental illness. And so, they've got the mental illness vote, but I think that they're having a problem. They're even losing, again, they're losing black men, some more comedy gold. I'm sorry. Barack Obama. This is amazing. Barack Obama I think he's in Philadelphia. No, he's in Pittsburgh, in the Kamala Harris campaign field office in Pittsburgh. And he starts lecturing black men and saying, black men are not support. First of all, I don't know if you even remember Barack Obama, but he never gave a speech without using the word I a million times. Everything was about Barack Obama. So the first thing he says to them is people aren't as excited for Kamala Harris as they used to be for me. Remember how excited they were really when I came in, I was so excited to be the person that made other people excited. So that's where he starts. And then he accuses black men of basically rejecting someone who is like them, i.e. brown-skinned, because she's a woman. Here's some of what he said.
You're thinking about sitting out or even supporting somebody who has a history of denigrating you because you think that's a sign of strength, because that's what being a man is, putting women down? That's not acceptable.
It's not acceptable. You naughty brothers, that's not acceptable. He still thinks that he is the father figure of all black people and possibly of America because when he was in office, the press protected him so well that nobody noticed, that nobody voted for any other Democrats during his entire term. They hated his policies. They liked him. He's an appealing guy. He knows how to talk to people, but they think that black people, I don't buy it. I do not buy it. And just embarrassingly, Kamala Harris brought out this plan to give $20,000 in forgivable government loans for 1 million minorities to start businesses, which is completely unconstitutional. They're not even going to do that. But also, she wants to legalize marijuana and help minorities with drug convictions benefit from the drug's commercial business potential. Her model appears to be New York State, which gave first priority for pot retail licenses to those most impacted by the enforcement of the prohibition of cannabis. So in other words, black people who've been arrested for marijuana use, they're going to give you marijuana so you can go into business with it. And that, you can guess how that's going to work out for black folks. It's going to be great. That's going to skyrocket you. The next thing you know, you will have a medical degree. Smoke enough of that weed and you will become a rocket scientist, or at least think you're a rocket scientist, or at least think you're a rocket or something like that. It's, Scott Turner, National Review, no Trump friend at National Review, right? National Review, never Trump publication, says the unemployment rate for blacks reached a record low of 5.2% under Trump, and black labor force participation reached 63.2%, the highest it had been since the 2008 recession. The poverty rate for black Americans reached record lows under Trump. A total of 1 million lifted themselves out of poverty in the 3 years of his administration, 2016 to 2019. Over the same period, real median household income for black families rose over $4,000 after actually falling over the previous 14 years. With incomes rising so fast, it should not be surprising that black home ownership skyrocketed to 47%. And because the people who support Kamala Harris are all women, they say, well, yeah, but the things he says, it's the way he says things. It's the way Trump says things. It's amazing. It's amazing. They're going to give money and marijuana to black people because that has really worked in the past. Take out the human suffering. It's hilarious. I may not have mentioned this, but A Woman Underground, number 4 in the Cameron Winter series, has now come out, and you can get signed copies of this book over at dailywire.com/shop. If you love truly good mystery writing, this book is for you. I would know. I wrote it. I'm not just a fun-loving, cheerful relic of a bygone era that hosts your favorite podcast. I'm also a fun-loving, cheerful relic of a bygone era that has honed his craft of mystery writing to a phenomenally piercing level, one only attainable by eons of refinement by a primordial being such as myself. Don't miss out on this installment in the Cameron Winter Mystery Series. You really will love it. I promise. Go to dailywire.com/shop today. Chapter 3, I, Iran. One more joke that I have to just put this in. In the Bret Baier interview, Kamala Harris is asked, who is America's worst enemy? And she says, Iran.
I was there, most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that
but those
is,
proxies were getting funded
my
by
commitment
Iran.
to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, always for the fallback. And by the way, you can see Baier's eyes are moving because the people, Kamala's people are saying, kill the interview, end the interview. And they're screaming. He said 4 people were calling him to wrap up the interview. All right. So this is nonsense about protecting Israel's right not to be attacked. If you are mugged, you not only have a right not to be attacked, you have a right to seek justice. You have a right to go after the people who mugged you, which is what's happening. And they're not only not supporting that effort, the Biden administration is threatening Israel if they don't give more aid in Gaza. They're saying they will not send them as many arms as they need. This is as opposed to a year ago when Biden said if Hamas diverts or steals the assistance, they will have demonstrated once again that they have no concern for the welfare of the Palestinian people and the assistance will end. And they have been stealing it and it hasn't ended. But in spite of all of this, almost by accident, they've been hunting this guy, Yahya Sinwar, who was the mastermind behind the October 7th attack. They've been hunting. Their best troops are out there. A group of kind of lower-level technical trainees, all right, stumble on him, shoot him. He runs into a building. They send in a drone, and they kill him. All right, so they kill the mastermind of October 7th. This is probably the biggest kill of the war, and this is in Rafah, okay? Kamala Harris now seizes on this opportunity to pretend to be presidential. And she comes out, this is what she says, cut 17.
Today, Israel confirmed that Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, is dead. And justice has been served. And the United States, Israel, and the entire world are better off as a result. Sinwar was responsible for the killing of thousands of innocent people, including the victims of October 7 and hostages killed in Gaza. He had American blood on his hands.
Oh, and she says, as you know, when I'm, the commander-in-chief, we were going to punish any terrorists. All right. Before Israel went into Rafah, when they were planning to go into Rafah, where they killed this guy, this is what Kamala said then, cut 19.
We have been clear in multiple conversations and in every way that any major military operation in Rafah would be a huge mistake. Let me tell you something. I have studied the maps. There's nowhere for those folks to go. And we're looking at about 1.5 million people in Rafah who are there because they were told to go there, most of them. And so we've been very clear that it would be a mistake to move into Rafah with any type of military operation.
So don't go in there. We went in there and killed the bad guy. Well, this is a victory for my administration. So look, I'm talking about this stuff because it is hilarious, and you are right to think, yes, but there's so much suffering involved, human suffering involved. So how can you laugh your way through the collapse of Western civilization? I said I would answer that question. Now I will. Now, for those of you who have already gotten a Helix mattress, you are getting a great night's sleep. But I have a different take on this because I lay awake all night, so I really know that Helix is comfortable. You guys are missing it. You're sleeping through your Helix, but I know how comfortable it is because I lie awake all night no matter what I'm lying on. And Helix, it isn't just about following sleep trends or using pseudoscientific gimmicks. Helix is committed to one thing, giving you the best sleep possible or just making you comfortable if, like me, you don't do that sleeping stuff. Their Helix Elite Collection features 6 different mattress models, each designed for specific sleep positions and firmness preferences. It's almost as if they recognize that we're all individuals with distinct needs. I took the Helix quiz myself. I was matched with a firm but breathable mattress, and it's terrific. I really do like it. It's incredibly comfortable, and while I'm reading and counting sheep and things like that, it's a great place to be. Helix even offers a 10-year warranty and a 100-night risk-free trial. They will pick it up for you if you don't love it, but you will. For a limited time, Helix is offering up to 20% off all mattress orders. Just go to helixsleep.com/Klavan. That's helixsleep.com/Klavan. This is their best offer yet, and it won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts the minute you know how to spell Klavan. It's Klavan.
There are no easy things.
Final chapter, the first joke ever. C.S. Lewis, the great Christian apologist, once said that almost the whole of Christian theology could be deduced from the fact that there are dirty jokes and ghost stories. And his point was that both dirty jokes and ghost stories catch at something is strange about the fact that our bodies and our spirits are at war with one another. He says, dogs don't find it funny to be a dog. Angels probably don't find it funny to be an angel. But people find it funny to be people because there's something wrong between our spirits and bodies that's not supposed to be there. It wouldn't be funny if we thought, oh, this is just the way things are. Let me tell you my favorite joke. I've told it before on the air, but for those of you who haven't heard it, I'll tell it as quickly as I can, and I will warn you, as I always do, I am one of the very few handful of people who find this to be the funniest joke ever. Most people don't find it funny at all. I'll tell it anyway. A man who has an orange for a head walks into a bar. He's got no head, he's just got an orange on top of his neck. Sits down at the bar, and the bartender says to him, "You want to tell me about this?" And the guy takes his drink, and he says, "Yes, I was walking on the beach, and I stumbled on an old lamp. And I took it home and I polished it, and a genie came out of the lamp and granted me 3 wishes. So I thought this was some kind of gag. So I said, all right, I wish for $10 million. Whereupon there was a knock at the door. I opened it and I had won a magazine sweepstakes that I didn't even remember entering for $10 million. I thought, holy crow, this is actually real. So I immediately went back and had my second wish, and I wished to sleep with the 12 most beautiful women on earth over the next year. Sure enough, once a month, one of the most beautiful women on earth would show up at my door and say, "My car broke down. Can I stay with you for a month until my car is fixed?" Over the next year, he slept with the 12 most beautiful women in the world. And he says to the bartender, "And then, I think this is where I made my mistake." And the bartender says, "Why? What did you do?" He says, "I wish to have an orange for a head." Now, I heard that joke and I laughed, literally kept laughing for 3 days. And I've told it to 1 million people. Very few people find it funny. I think it's hilarious. But the reason it's hilarious is because it is a perfect description of humankind. We're given a beautiful world. We're given life. We're given the incredible gift of life. And we wish for an orange for a head. We have a beautiful, free, powerful, safe country in America, and we elect Barack Obama, who says, "I'm going to fundamentally transform this country." That's having an orange for a head. We have a wonderful wife. We have children. We go out and sleep with another woman. That's wishing for an orange for a head. And the funny thing about this joke is, if you think about the joke long enough, and I've thought about it a lot because so many people don't find it funny at all, if you think about the joke, you start to realize that every wish the guy has is a wish to have an orange for a head. This is another thing C.S. Lewis said. He said, we spend our time wishing for money and sex when God is offering this incredible joy that goes way, way beyond it. He says it's as if we are eating mud pies. We're making mud pies when we could be eating a fine steak and a wonderful glass of wine. Now, it's fascinating. I mean, the orange head joke is basically the fall of man, right? You're put in the Garden of Eden. You're walking with your God. You've got a partner, a perfect partner in your wife. And there's only one rule: don't wish you had an orange for a head. That's the only rule. Don't wish you had an orange for a head. And what do? We wish we had an orange for a head. The fall of man is like a joke. It's like a slapstick joke in which a guy with a tuxedo falls into a mud puddle, which is essentially the oldest joke in the world, that the mighty are brought low, all right? So what all this is saying is that humor is about things that are not the way they should be, that don't make sense, and frequently they bring the high down to the low. And this idea, when you look around at the world and at yourself, in psychiatry, in modern materialist thinking, what they tell you is that you pretend to want to be holy, but what you really want is an orange for a head. What you really want is to sleep with all the beautiful women and to have all the money. That's what you really want. So you're really being a hypocrite. So what you should really do, like I said, if you read the New York Times at least 3 times a week, they'll say, you could have a throuple. You could, dress up in leather and slap people around for sex. It'd be great. It's going to be great. And they'll tell you the only person in the New York Times they do not want you to sleep with is your wife or husband. That's the only time they ever have any qualms about any form of sex whatsoever. They do not want you to have a sex-filled, happy marriage. They just want you to go out and do this. So in materialist logic, all of your higher aspirations are a fraud, and the real you are your physical desires, your envy of other people, your anger at other people, your sniggering kind of feeling that you're not as good as they are and you want to bring them down. That's the real you. The Christian idea is exactly the opposite. It's not quite the opposite, because what the Christian idea is this: you pretend to want to be a saint, but you really want to sleep with all the women and just get all the money, no matter what you have to do it. But the Christian idea is that underneath that, you actually want to be a saint. The real you is the original you. The real you is the person who was in the Garden of Eden and really didn't want an orange for a head and just kind of got seduced by these physical desires, maybe that you didn't fully comprehend, and you didn't fully comprehend what was going to happen if you followed them through. So when you joke about the craziness of the world, even knowing, as I do know, very well, that corruption and the stupidity of mankind leads to human suffering, even when you know that, if you joke about it, it's basically to say that the evil and the corruption are not the real us. It's to say that we are meant for something better. That's what the joke is. The joke is that we're meant to be wearing a tuxedo and we've fallen into the mud. Now, one of the things they forget to tell you in life is that every good thing is difficult. If you want every good thing takes effort. Let's put it that way. If you want to get into good shape, you have to work out. You have to eat well. It takes effort. But the joy is greater than being flabby and fat and basically in ill health. The joy is greater for the effort to love well, to learn well, to change when you're in the wrong. These are all things that take effort, that are hard to do, and they're all things that lead to joy. And that's one of the great challenges of Christianity, and it really is a challenge, is once you become a Christian, you start to realize what the world is like. You start to realize that all around you, people are walking around asking for an orange for a head and making fun of you and belittling you if you don't want an orange for a head, if you don't want the things that are making them miserable, if you're somehow different than they are and you're saying, I can make a little less money because I'm doing something that's really beautiful and worthwhile. I'm being a mom. Yeah, I'm now at home. I don't get patted on the back for making the computers run right or putting the papers in the right place. Instead, I'm creating human souls and creating a home for my husband and my family that will mean everything to them for the rest of their lives. Yeah, I've lost a little of the world's respect. I've lost a little of the awards, but this is where the joy is. This is where the joy is. They make fun of you for that. You're supposed to say, no, you have this beautiful home. You have these children who rise and call you blessed. You're shaping souls. You're making a man a place where he can be in the world and live as a human being, but you're not getting an orange for a head. You could have an orange for a head. We're not even going to write about you in the New York Times. There are going to be bumper stickers that say real women want an orange for a head. That's the world that we live in. And one of the great challenges of Christianity is when you realize how corrupt the world is, when you realize how many people are orange-head people. Almost all the people are orange-head people, and all the people with power are orange-head people, and almost all the people who are celebrities are orange-head people. When you realize that, it's very easy to go dark. It's very easy to start to complain and say, this is the end of days. Look how corrupt everything is. Oh, our country is failing. Look how corrupt everything is. Oh, everything is decadent and people are evil, and it must be Jesus must be coming again. It's really easy to get into that place and to start to concentrate on the people who hate you and the people who even want you dead and the people who are saying terrible things about it. It's very easy to do that. And that's why the Bible commands you to rejoice. It commands you to rejoice. And when I say laugh, that's rejoicing. That's a form of rejoicing. When I say taking things as if they're funny, that's a form of rejoicing. What are you saying when you laugh at these things? When you laugh at corruption, when you laugh at the fact that our country is filled with people who abuse us and think that we're going to love them for it, and then wonder, run out at the last minute and say, you're not man enough. You're a toxic man. It's a horrible thing to be a man. It's even worse to be a white man, but I'm going to have a glass of beer and now you have to vote for me because otherwise you're not man enough. That's the world that we're living in. If you can't find that funny, then you're going to start to go dark. You're going to start to say everything's a cheat, everything's cruel, I've got nowhere to go. The way that you rejoice, the way that you laugh, is to understand that this is not who we're supposed to be, and we can return. We can return to who we're supposed to be. We can start moving in that direction. We're not going to reach that in life, because in life we're always going to be in this broken world. But when you start, all you have to do is take that trajectory, and the joy will start to come. So what you have is you have hope. You have hope that the orange head is not who you really are, that under the orange head is the head you were given, which is a head almost like an angel's. It's almost like an angel's. It's the head of a saint. That's your real head. That's what's really underneath that orange head. When you start to see that, you start to have hope that in the midst of this disaster, of this corruption, of this evil, of this cruelty, there's another level of life in which creation is good. It was made good and it remains good, and the good is in it even under the corruption, and the good is also in you underneath the corruption, the thing that you think is the real you and the part that you think is a hypocrite, it's actually the other way around. The part that you think is the real you is the bent part. Underneath that is something else. And God is just waiting for you to start walking in that direction. And like the father with the prodigal son, he will come running to meet you on the road. If you feel that way about yourself, if you teach yourself that, then you'll begin to have hope. And to have hope in a world like this one is not just funny, it's hilarious. A few years back, members of the world's elite met at the annual World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, and launched the Great Reset Initiative. The Great Reset sounds ominous because it is. What is this plan? And what does it mean for America? They aim to transform the world economy, and not in a good way. Founder and director of the forum, Klaus Schwab, even wrote, "We need a great reset of capitalism. And if successful, their plan would destroy our American way of life." Hillsdale College, and you know how much I love them. I taught there for a couple of weeks. Just a wonderful place, wonderful professors. They held a conference on the Great Reset, and you can view and learn from the speakers through an online video series. Hillsdale video series will give you insight into the origins and leaders of the Great Reset, how the ideology of woke capitalism is infiltrating large corporations, the Great Reset from China's perspective, alternatives to the Great Reset, and more. Get instant access to the Great Reset video series today by going to hillsdale.edu/Klavan. It's free, it's easy to sign up, and it's worth your time because it's from Hillsdale. Go to hillsdale.edu/Klavan, hillsdale.edu/Klavan to sign up now. You know what? They should teach a class at Hillsdale. How do you spell Klavan? Be brief, but all they have to say is Klavan. In just 10 days, Matt Walsh's hit comedy, Am I Racist?, is coming home to DailyWire Plus. That's right, October 28th is your first chance to stream the #1 documentary of the decade that's still verified hot on Rotten Tomatoes with a 97% audience score. But DailyWire Plus is the only place you can stream Am I Racist starting October 28th. So if you're not a DailyWire Plus member, go to dailywire.com/subscribe and use code DEI for 35% off new annual memberships right now. Your DailyWire Plus membership also gets you instant access to uncensored, ad-free daily shows from the most trusted voices in conservative media, as well as myself. You'll also get live breaking news and, of course, the cultural phenomenon, What is a Woman? Go to dailywire.com/subscribe and use code DEI for 35% off your new annual membership right now. All right, Klavan Klapbacks.
Pew.
Yeah! That's how Donald Trump gets those nicknames. You got to go pew, pew. All right, if you want to send in a clapback, it's Klavan Klapbacks, Klavan with a K, Klapbacks with a K, both with a K, Klavan Klapbacks at dailywire.com. Send in, you can comment on the show, you can ask about your life, you can ask about politics. I will answer as many as I can. From Chase, I have been dating this girl for about a year, and we seem to be a good match for each other. We are both strong Christians. We get along great, and I know she would be a great future wife and mom. There's just one problem. I'm not sure how attracted I am to her. I think maybe I feel that I am a bit too good for her, that I am out of her league or could get a more attractive wife. I do not want to date anyone else, and I don't think I would ever find a girl as good as her, but I'm thinking about marriage. Will I be able to love her to a proper extent? Thank you. That's a really interesting question, because I know people's first reaction is that you're being shallow or something like that. But no, I think you should be attracted to your wife, and that's an important thing. The question is what's going on, because one of the things we heard about when I asked for letters, and we heard this repeatedly, is that if you're dating online or you're looking online, you think there are all these other choices and you can never plunk on the girl in front of you. So it's possible that you have an illusion about how many more beautiful girls you could find, and they would be just as nice as this one, but maybe prettier. It's possible that there's something, that maybe she is genuinely unattractive or overweight in some way, or, something that's unattractive to you in some way, that is a problem. Maybe it's a problem that can be fixed. People who are overweight can lose weight, and maybe not. And then there is something else, which is, are you worried about how you feel about her? Or are you worried about how your friends think of her? Because in my experience, which is what it is, I've been married for a long time, but still in my experience, that when you start liking a girl, she becomes a lot prettier, when you start to, and that's true even a pretty girl. There are plenty of pretty girls that I would think like, I don't really like her, so what? But then you start to find that maybe she's nice, sweeter than you thought, more feminine than you thought, and then you start to be attracted to her. So if you feel this way about a woman, I'm kind of surprised that you don't find her attractive, and I wonder why that. I think you should really ask yourself why that is. Are you worried that your pals will look at her and say, oh, he married a dog, even though you actually would like to be with her? Or is it something about her that maybe you could work on or not? And if not, look, I think, a marriage to somebody that you don't like sexually is probably going to be problematic. It's probably going to be problematic. There, you want some romance in your life. This is where you find that is going to be in your life. So you want to think it through, because it sounds to me, unless you're like the most good-looking guy in the world, it sounds to me like maybe you're deceiving yourself here. But I can't say because I just don't know. From Jennifer, I was a British lit major. I've spent nearly 40 years engaging in the enjoyable pastime of bagging on American literature. That's hating American literature. So when my older son gave me the Cameron Winter series to read and highly recommended it, I knew it would be at least fun to read, but I was skeptical it would be high quality. I was delighted at the quality of the writing, and especially the well-drawn characters. The recruiter is now my favorite character in all of American lit. I probably didn't mention that A Woman Underground is now available, and that if you don't buy it by the time the show is over, you will go to hell for all eternity. It's a theological fact. So you want A Woman Underground, you want to get that as quickly as you can. And if you can get it on Amazon, I think that's a good place, but you can get it at the DailyWire shop and get it signed. Mysterious Bookshop has them signed as well, and I will be at the Mysterious Bookshop on Monday. Anyway, here's our question. Since it seems like we are having such a renaissance in conservative arts, I wonder if this isn't a good time for me to start a new publishing house. Given your greater experience with publishers, I'd love to hear your thoughts on publishing startups versus established publishers. If you know what you're doing, you can start a publishing house fairly easily, but it takes a lot of work to get it going. Books are not like movies, and that's one of the mistakes that the big publishing houses have made, is they bet on big books and they bet on big advances to bring in big books. But you can have a successful, smaller publishing house, but you've got to really know what you're doing. You got to know how you're going to market them. You got to know how you're going to get them out. It's really a lot of books. To the making of books, there is no end, as the Bible says, and it is really, really easy for books to get lost in the mix. Nowadays, for instance, authors have to have some kind of platform like I have to reach out to people and browbeat them into buying a book they'll love, because they just, are too stubborn to go out and get it until the fourth time I tell them to do it. That you have to have somebody who has that kind of platform. And, that's a problem, because not some writers are shy. Some writers just want to be in their room writing, and they don't have what it takes to go out and become a personality. So you have to really think about how you're going to sell the books and keep them going. My publisher is a small imprint for mysteries, and he has kept it going all these years because the editor has Otto Penzler is the most famous mystery editor in the country, and has excellent taste in quality stuff. But he actually fights for his corner because he can't bring out the powerhouse that bigger publishers can bring out and use the kind of promotion that they have. So you really got to think it through, but there's no reason you can't start publishing things, and there's no reason that writers can't publish themselves and get books out there, because the world has become much more democratic. Is the way I've been talking about through the whole show, that the media has now become much more democratic, and you can reach people better, but you have to think it through. It's not enough. The problem is always distribution. It is not enough to publish. You've got to figure out how you're going to distribute it and get it to people and make sure they know it exists. So make sure you solve the problem before you start. We're going into member block, so become a member today. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe and use code Klavan at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Otherwise, you will be plunged into Klavanlessness unless you've bought A Woman Underground, which is now available everywhere.
The question everyone in America is asking:
am I racist?
Make those moves. Get a Daily Wire Plus membership to see Am I Racist?
This is all I have. Did you want to?
I can help you guys out.
Yeah.
Go to amирacist.com and sign up now.
I've been told, because I'm a white male, kind of at the top of the pile, how do I get down from the top?
I don't think you necessarily can.
How do we get past all the talk about racism?
We have to love each other.
Well, it can't be that simple. How do we get to a point of racial harmony? It's good to talk to you. We're still on a journey, all of us together.
I think you got some journeying to do.
Just talk to me about the statistics. We have an epidemic.
20 million crimes a year, 6,000, 7,000 hate crimes. No, there's no epidemic.
Why are we talking about statistics? This is not a matter of statistics.
Well, you asked me about the statistics.
Am I Racist? Coming to Daily Wire Plus on October 28th. Rated PG-13.